Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Coffee with a Counselor, graduation edition. My name is Jennifer, and I am on the school-based team with North Range Behavioral Health, and I am back again this week in order to continue our conversation about everything that's going on in the world for our seniors and how we can respond in the most effective way possible. So last week was heavy. We talked about grief and loss, especially surrounding our major milestones that typically happen senior year. And so this week, I want to change gears a little bit, and I want to address how we can practice good daily self-care to keep ourselves in a space where we're better prepared to adjust to adversity as it comes, as well as how we can effectively utilize coping skills to manage any emotional distress that does come up when adversity does hit us. So go ahead and grab your beverage of choice, get comfortable, and let's chat. So when we talk about self-care, I like to talk about it as this multifaceted necessity because we as humans are, a complex whole. And we have so many different aspects of ourselves that we have to feed and fuel and take care of. And so we're going to talk about those different areas and how we can feed those parts of us. So we're going to talk about emotional self-care, mental or cognitive self-care, spiritual self-care, physical self-care, and social self-care. And so we'll start with emotional. It is so important that we allow ourselves to connect to our emotions. And we can do that in a variety of different ways. That might be through journaling, through going to therapy, which obviously I am a huge fan of. Might be through talking out, reaching out to our supports, letting others know what's going on for us and what we might need from them. It might be positive self-talk and affirmations or daily mantras. So if we catch ourselves having negative self-statements like, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid, I can't believe I didn't get this, rewriting that self-statement to, I'm still learning, I'm just not there yet. Might look at daily mantras like, today is going to be a good day, or I can do today. Today I will conquer. An example from my personal life is, it's not every day, but we have a lot of bunnies in our neighborhood. And I decided that whenever there's a bunny in our yard, it's a sign that it's a good day. And so if I see a bunny out in our yard, I'll text my husband and say, it's a bunny day. And then he and I both know, okay, great, it's going to be a good day. And so finding those daily little rituals that we can practice that help us stay in that positive headspace. We can also be creative or artistic to take care of ourselves emotionally. And I always like to point out that you don't have to be good at art in order to be creative or to enjoy the process. It's not about the finished product. It's about what we get out of engaging in it. And so allowing ourselves to be creative without judging if it's good or bad or right or wrong, and just noticing how we feel while we're doing it. When we talk about mental and cognitive self-care, we talk about how do we engage our mind? How do we make sure that we're stimulating our intellect in a way that's helpful for us? And so for some people that might be reading, which could be reading for pleasure, or it could be reading for professional development, whatever we feel like we need in that time. It could be doing puzzles, and that can be an old school puzzle like 1,000-piece, 5,000-piece puzzle. Those don't ever really make it too far in our house because of the cats, but it could also be Sudoku or crosswords or just anything that keeps your wheels turning. It can also be engaging in conversations with others, practicing and pursuing civil discourse. It can be goal setting, either short-term or long-term. What do I want to get out of today? What do I want to get out of this week, this month, this year? And then planning. What do I need to meet these goals? How do I support myself in pursuing and achieving these things? When we talk about spiritual self-care, for a lot of people, what comes to mind is religious. And if you're one of those people, that's great. Spiritual self-care can be praying, it can be going to church, or it can be reading a religious text. If you're not one of those people, it doesn't have to be religious. It can be whatever feeds and fuels your soul. So it could be yoga or meditation. It could be spending time out in nature or volunteering for a cause that you connect with or that you support. Physical self-care, and I'm sure some of you are like, oh gosh, yeah, now she's going to tell me that I need to eat healthy and exercise. And while yes, those are very important parts of physical self-care, there's also a lot more to it. When we talk about physical self-care, we also have to talk about having a regular sleep schedule, getting a sufficient amount of sleep, practicing good sleep hygiene. So things like limiting your screen time before bed, at least half an hour before you're ready to go to bed. Making sure that you're brushing your teeth or washing your face or showering, practicing those daily hygiene habits. Another part of physical self-care is also going to necessary medical or doctor's appointments and listening to our body, whether it's we just have a regular checkup at the dentist or we're sick, doing something that is responding to our body's cues. Our bodies are telling us, hey, this is what I need, something's not right. And so staying in tune and connected with our bodies. Lastly, we have social self-care, which is obviously more challenging right now with all of the restrictions in place and with the safer at home order and quarantine and everything that's going on in the world. And so now more than ever, social self-care requires a bit of flexibility and a bit of creativity. It might be just sending, hey, thinking of you texts to someone that you haven't talked to in a while, or arranging a Zoom or a FaceTime call with your family or friends. Just something that we're able to do to reach out and say, hey, I'm still invested in this connection. This connection still means something to me. When I talk to my kids about self-care, I explain it as teapots and teacups. You as a person are one single teapot, and everything else in your life is a teacup. So your friends are each a teacup. Your family members are each a teacup. Your job, your sports, your church, your school is all its own teacup. I don't think that was grammatically correct, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. Everything in life is a teacup. It is physically impossible for you as one single teapot to fill up every cup in your life without first filling yourself back up. So what that means is that in order for us to take care of everyone and everything else in our life, we must first fill ourselves up and take care of ourselves. Filling our teacup can be something that we do through small daily acts like we were talking about before. It doesn't have to be a grand mountain getaway or an expensive day at the spa. As lovely as those things are and as recharging and beneficial as those can be, we don't always have the time or the finances to make that happen. And especially if we're taking that much time between when that happens. So for example, with our students, if the idea is, all right, I'm going to recharge over Christmas break, and then it's just back onto the grind until I can unplug and recharge again at spring break. That is way too much time to go without filling yourself back up. And so we want to make sure that when we fill ourselves up, we're doing it properly. If we have a guest come over, I can either give them a cup of piping hot, perfectly brewed peppermint tea, or I can give them a cup of lukewarm, kind of minty tasting water. When I'm practicing good daily self-care, I'm letting the water boil. I'm letting the tea seep for the amount of time, so it's that perfect cup. But if I'm cutting corners and I'm not truly taking care of myself, it's going to be that lukewarm mint water. And so often we prioritize the needs of others, that we don't take care of ourselves. And so in order for not only us to get our best, but for us to give our best to everyone else in our life, self-care is critically essential. The last thing I want to address when we talk about self-care is the idea that it is not always enjoyable. If we don't like going to the dentist, but we need to go to the dentist, that's still self-care. It might be completing that homework that we've been procrastinating, that we say, oh, I've got time, and then all of a sudden, okay, now I don't have time, and now I'm stressing about it. So getting that homework done. It might be cleaning or doing chores that we don't enjoy, but then being able to have a clean and organized space when we're done. So self-care is making sure that we put ourselves in a position, that we put ourselves at a baseline where we're ready and where we're full, so that if something comes up that drains us, we have the capacity to give to it. Coping, on the other hand, is when we're off baseline and something comes up, and so we're triggered, we're activated, and so we're escalated, and we need to respond to that. So coping is consciously investing in resolving personal or interpersonal issues and emotional distress that might come up. And so when we talk about coping skills, I want to break them down into three larger categories. We've got processing coping skills, distraction coping skills, and soothing coping skills. When I talk about processing skills, what I mean by that is I mean skills that help us truly process the emotions that come up for us. So, perfect example of that is journaling. Journaling is, especially when we do it pen to paper and writing, it activates different pathways in our brain. So we're literally changing the way that our brain is processing the information that we are writing. So when we journal, we're reflecting on and consuming that information differently than if we just think about it or we talk about it. Journaling also allows us to go back and reflect on our process and how our thoughts and feelings evolved throughout the situation, which can help prepare us for similar situations down the road. Distraction coping skills, on the other hand, are when those emotional responses are too much or too intense that we're not able to process it in the moment. And so distraction skills help us shift our focus away from that emotional distress. So one of my favorite distraction skills to talk about is grounding. And the idea behind grounding is that we're shifting our focus from that internal distress to our external environment. And one of the ways that we can do that is through using and engaging our senses. And so if we think we've got 5 senses, we do it by doing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so you can even do this along with me as we're talking. So looking at what are 5 things that you can see. For me, I can see my computer and my camera. I can see my coffee mug. I can see the clouds out the windows. I can see my neighbor's car. And I can see that I need to dust my ceiling light. What are 4 things that you can feel? I can feel my soft fleece, which is warm. I can feel my cold wood table. I can feel this putty container, which is light. And I can feel this water bottle, which is heavy. What are 3 things that I can hear? I can hear my heat. I can hear my fridge making ice in the background. And I can hear my cats running around upstairs. There are 2 things that I can smell. I can smell my laundry detergent, and I can smell my tea. Lastly, what is 1 thing that I can taste? I can taste my tea. And so when we go through and we use our senses in this way, it helps ground us in reality. When we become emotionally distressed, we might start to dissociate or lose touch with reality. So things might start to feel like they're like hazy or foggy, or like we're in a dream, or we might even be feeling like we're watching ourselves out from outside of our body. And so when we ground, we're helping keep our bodies connected to the reality around us. If you decide to use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 senses as grounding, a couple pointers that I've learned along the way is, one, I typically, unless you're at an all-you-can-eat buffet, use the smell and taste as the last two, because we don't always have 5 things on hand that we're able to taste in a sanitary way, at least. And same with smelling. And then also trying to find things that really shock your senses or really engage them or invigorate them. So when you're looking at things, look for vibrant colors that really stand out. When you're feeling things, feel things that are contrast in weight or temperature, so things that might be really hot or really cold. When you're tasting things, something with intense flavor like a mint or a piece of gum. And then when you're smelling things, something that's powerful or potent. If you have a candle or perfume that you're able to, or essential oils that you're able to smell. Because the more we engage the senses, the more we're connecting to them. Lastly, we're going to talk about soothing coping skills. Soothing skills help us, when we're elevated, come back down to our baseline. Our baseline is when we're just chilling, we're vibing, we're not super happy, we're not super down, we're not super irritated, we're just there. And so one of the soothing skills that I want to talk about today is deep breathing. And the reason that I want to talk about deep breathing specifically is that a lot of times when we're anxious, we convince ourselves that we're deep breathing, but we're actually not. We're hyperventilating, or we're having really fast, shallow breath. And it sounds and looks kind of like a dog after a run, where it's like, and mentally, we think we're deep breathing, but physically, we're not getting that oxygen. We're not having that sensation of breathing. And then it creates more of a sense of panic because we're like, I'm breathing, but I can't. And then it feels like we can't breathe. And so one of the ways that we can counteract that is through what I call 4 square breathing. And it's where we breathe in for 4 seconds, we hold it for 4 seconds, and we exhale for 4 seconds. And we do that a minimum of 4 times, thus 4 square. So when we breathe, we want to breathe in fully, using our full lung capacity, using our diaphragm, all of those muscles. And so it should look like, and we exhale for 4 seconds, and we repeat that process. And by counting, we're helping pace ourselves so that we know we're actually breathing, instead of where we're hyperventilating and we feel like we might be, but we're not actually. So of all the coping skills and the self-care strategies that we've talked about today, if any of them have piqued your interest, any of them stand out as something that might be helpful for you, I encourage you to Google it, do some more research. There's a lot of great skills or resources out there for these skills, including phone apps. There's a huge variety of them. One that I always recommend to my kids is called Virtual Hope Box. It's a free app, and it's got guided meditations, guided grounding, guided deep breathing. It's got your own coping skills, flashcards that you can make, that you can flip through when you're feeling triggered or escalated, so that you can just flip through and know, okay, no, okay, yeah, we're gonna try this one. But that's by no means the only app that's available to you. And so look what's out there. There's a lot of great resources. Next week, we will start discussing time management and accountability, both of which are absolutely critical skills as you prepare to transition to life after high school. And so until then, take care of yourself, take care of others, and thank you for taking a break with me. If you or someone that you know is experiencing a behavioral health emergency, please contact our crisis response team at 970-347-2120 and press 2 to speak to crisis services. You can text TALK, T-A-L-K, to 38255. Or you may walk into our 24/7 crisis building at 928 12th Street in Greeley, Colorado. Thanks again for taking a break with me, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.